the version 10. For version 10, we've been guided by the principles of making the software simpler, faster, and more accurate to use. The features I show you today are all following that main principle. Version 10 had many feature requests by our end users, and I'm very happy to report that we were able to fit a lot of our end users' requests into version 10, and I'll unveil all of those for you today. One of the key requests we had from our end users was 64-bit application, to make Envisioneer a true 64-bit application. And we've taken that request very seriously. Making the software a 64-bit application is a very long and intense programming job. So what we've done is we wanted to still release version 10 in June following our normal release cycle. So when we release the software in July, we will be including it for a 32-bit application. We will then be following up in the fall with a 64-bit. Those of you that have already purchased the upgrade, there's many of you that have already been on board and getting the upgrade, and those of you that are going to be signing up to get version 10, you do get both releases. When we release in July, with the features that I show you today, everything that I show you today will be releasing in July. And then in the fall, when we release our 64-bit version, you'll be getting that release as well. So this is a two-part process. Also part of that two-part process, the part of the release that we will be going in, releasing in October, will be features specifically for drafting. We know that's a big issue with a lot of you, that you want drafting features, being able to get out your working drawings. So when we do release in October with our 64-bit application, there will be some enhanced drafting utilities with that as well. We're releasing those at that time because a lot of them are involved with the 64-bit application. So we want to make sure that all of those features work nicely with the 64-bit. So we're going to release the features that I show you today in July, and then in the fall, it'll be a 64-bit application with some enhanced drafting features as well. So let's get on with the show and show you what we have, exciting new features for you that we are releasing in July for version 10. The first thing, and one of the most exciting tools I think I want to show you first, is we have now a new structural floor tool. So I'm going to put my model here that you can see on my screen back into 2D for us. I'm going to zoom in on the model so you can see it nice and big on my screen. And then I'm going to use our structural floor tool. The structural floor tool can be inserted in 3 different ways, that you can see here. Structural floor by perimeter, by room if you're just wanting to put a structural floor in one room, or by picking points if you wanted to dictate exactly where you want it to go. So I'm going to use by perimeter. The catalog panel to the right will update, and you'll see the structural floor tool has some different catalog elements into it, and you can build on that as well. So the floor I'm going to use for you today is a 2x10 floor system with 3/4 inch plywood. Since I chose the perimeter tool, all I have to do is left click in the area, and you can see the structural floor is inserted for me throughout the entire perimeter. Now I'm going to be adjusting this structural floor. I want to make some enhancements to it. I want to perhaps change the way that it's framing in certain areas and break it out. So I'm going to move my cursor along the edge of the structural floor. Now another common issue that people were saying they're having is trying to select things. I want to be able to select something in 2D, but it always selects the ceiling, or it always selects the wall, and I want to select that floor. So just by left-clicking on the object that I want to select, I'm now going to hold down my Shift key, and as I move my cursor, you can see that it's selecting different objects. So I can go along and choose all of those different objects that it's selecting. So you can see it's selecting the concrete floor I might have had already in this garage. Now it's selecting the window. Looking down the lower left-hand of my screen, you can see all the different things that it's selecting for us. So as you move your cursor and select different objects, you can select the one that you had wanted. And here's my roof that it's selected. And if I hold down that Shift key and again moving the cursor, I can just go through and select different objects that it's selecting for my roof and all through. You still will have the ability to go into your view filter. And if you sat in any of my training classes that I did all over the world for people, one of the options that I had for selecting things and turning selectability off is just coming in and turning off different things that you want to see and you don't want to see. So I can come through and change the selections. Maybe I don't want to see my floor or my roof or my ceiling, those options are still valid, so you can still simplify what you're looking at, or you can turn them back on so you do get all of those elements, your structural floor framing, your structural floor system on, but other elements off. And again, when you've selected that element, so I'm going to go now and select my structural floor, holding down that Shift key, I'm going to go through and cycle through all of the different objects that have this common edge, and you can see all the different ones. There's my structural floor. Notice all the arrows pointing to the different edges that I can select. Now that it's my primary object, I can move and select it and adjust it. So I'm going to take this one edge where my cursor is hovering over, and I'm going to push it up so that it's sitting up here. And I can take all of these edges, and you can see that it's going to reframe the floor depending where I've moved these edges to. So I'm going to move this one along here. Now, what if I wanted, this is a long span, obviously, from one side to the other for those floor joists. What if I had an element for them to bear onto down in the basement? So I'm going to pretend I have a beam in certain locations. How do I indicate that, and how do I automatically get this floor to cut those joists at that point and overlap them if I wanted them to? Well, I'm going to right-click to reveal some options of the structural floor. And with the structural floor, one of the options you can see is I can insert a bearing line. So I'm just going to left-click to insert that bearing line. I'm going to insert a line right where I'm moving my cursor. And I'm going to pretend down in my foundation location that I have a beam down there. And I just want to point out to this floor that there's a bearing line right there. So I left-click, and it's going to turn that on for me. And I'm going to left-click again, and that'll put it on. Right-click, and I'm going to deselect everything that I had selected. I'm just going to turn off this PDF that I had originally inserted. And there you can see, if I zoom up nice and close, that we have the joist automatically overlapping where I put that bearing line. That's that dashed line that you see inserted. How did it know how far to overlap that joist? Well, if I double-click back in my catalog at that structural floor that I inserted, you can see that the structural floors have intelligence, and they have things behind them in the background. So one of the general properties that I put in is that the joist direction was 0 degrees, meaning that it'll run left to right on my screen. Their spacing was 16 inches on center. You can see that joist at bearing options right here. It told them that I wanted to stagger the joist wherever they needed a bearing point of a distance of 1 foot. So if I just move this dialog back down, you can see that where I put that bearing line coming down the center here, these joists are overlapping 1 foot at those locations. You'll also notice in these structural floor system options that I have here that I can put in my joist direction, staggering them whenever I have a bearing line. I can also indicate sheathing at the same time. So I'm going to tell it that, yes, I want to include sheathing, and I want to choose that from my catalog, choose whatever selection I'd like. I can even put a phase and usage. So for those of you that are using the software for estimating purposes, this gives you the opportunity to go in and tell it exactly what phase and usage you want for these items as you're putting them in, so it'll automatically put them in the right order in your material list. So I've got my general floor information, my sheathing. I can choose my joist, what I want them to be, whatever member size I'd like to select. I can even indicate a sill plate. So as I'm putting my floor in, I can also put in a sill plate at the exact same time. Saving you the opportunity to put those in separately. You still can, but this will get it done all at the same time for you, so you can really save some time by being able to put the sheathing, the joist, the sill plate. It also recognizes the separate designation of a band joist from your rim joist, and those can be two totally separate members. And it will put in any openings that you put into that floor. It'll automatically cut the headers around them for you at the same time. So this structural floor tool is a great new enhancement for version 10. It recognizes the structure behind the floor, allows you to specify all of these different components of that floor, and then once you have them in, you can put that bearing line in like I did, automatically overlapping all of the joists. You also have the opportunity with that to break these into different sections, so I can break the floor as well and reorientate the joists so they're going in a different direction, part of that. So very easily now you can manipulate the floor, changing the shape of it, showing it bearing lines so it can automatically update that, putting in different members. When you want to cut the floor, cut the opening, you can do that as well. What you'll also notice with this floor is that if I click on one of these members, see how it's automatically already an individual member? I don't have to break it into members. They're automatically separated, and I can move them and adjust each one of those separately. This member is still part of that floor, and it's letting me adjust it and manipulate it. I can even right-click, and I can add this to the structural floor. If it was a member that I put in separately, it can be added to the structural floor, or I can remove it from the structural floor so it will no longer be with it and updated as I move the floor around. You'll also see some other options there that I'm going to go over later when we're talking about inserting members separately as well. But the new structural floor, again, will allow you to add and remove members from it, individual members, and still contain it as the floor itself. So you've got greater enhancement, quicker ways to adjust all of the joists and all the individual members that were part of the floor itself. Next part, I'm going to pop this back into a 3D view, looking at 3D perspective at our model here. And I'm going to look specifically at the walls and the framing behind them. So I'm going to put this up into View, Framing, and Display Our Framing. So all of our framing comes in. And I'm going to adjust this to a rendered outline view. So I can see the rendered outline of my studs. Now, if I come inside the house, I'm going to go into Camera 1 here, and it's inside the house. See how I don't have a rendered outline view in this view? It's just a rendered view. If I return to my 3D perspective view, note that it's still in that rendered outline type of view. Another great feature of version 10 is that we retain the display mode of all of the different camera views that you have. So as I insert a camera and go to different views, it will remember that I wanted this one in a rendered outline view, or in perhaps another view in a pattern view, or a hidden line, or a wireframe. So all of your cameras will remember their views, so you don't have to take the time to adjust the view every time you come into that. That's a great and handy feature that was a request from one of our end users. So I'm looking at the framing of our walls and our roof, and you can see our floor framing in there as well. And I'm going to come up here to View, Framing Mode On/Off. I'm going to click on one of these wall infills. It's the kind of gold color infill that you see on the screen. The gold indicates that I'm looking at the infill of the wall, and I want to adjust some of their settings. So I'm just going to double click on that infill option. I'm going to tell it that I want to use a custom infill for this portion of the wall. So I'm going to hit Select Custom Infill. That takes in to look at all of the different infills that I have. I just want to double click on one of them to show you some new features that we have. You'll notice here under our infill properties that we have some extended options. Previously, before version 10, you just had these general options, the stud spacing, interference, and cut opening. But now you'll notice underneath that we have projection into place. So I can take my stud and project it into the top or the bottom plate, and I'm going to say that I could do that by even, I can say 2 feet here into the top and go 6 inches to the bottom. Let me change that to inches here. Why is that helpful? Where do you see that being useful? Well, for our steel framers. We have a lot of end users that use the software in their steel framing. They wanted to project those studs into the top track and bottom track. Previously, it would stop you when it hit the bottom edge of the bottom plate or the top plate. Now you can project those steel studs to more accurately display the steel framing capabilities in the software. Another reason people wanted to be able to project those up and down as much as they wanted to are for the people that are using the software for pole barns. They wanted to use the exact same pole all the way down from the foundation up to the top of the roof. This will allow you to use that one single member all the way through, projecting through the plates as it's going through. So it's a great feature that was a request of our end users using it for steel framing and also for pole barns. Another feature that was requested was the ability to be able to use multiple bottom plates, and multiple bottom plates that have different designations. So I'm highlighted right now on the bottom plate in our member selection for this wall framing infill. And I'm going to hit New. You'll see that I got another member, and if you look at the visual down here, there's now 2. This gives you the opportunity to have a pressure-treated very bottom plate and then a normal bottom plate sitting on top of it. you can have as many bottom plates as you want. I can hit new here several times, and you can see it's just stacking all its way up. So for those of you that have customized framing situations where you need multiple bottom plates, version 10 now allows you to do that. You can have as many bottom plates as you want, and they can all be different types of members, whether it's the same type of members that you used when you were framing the wall, or if you wanted to point it to a pressure-treated member for those basement or on-grade situations. I'm going to cancel out of here so we don't get all of those bottom plates in the designation. And I'm going to go back down to my view framing mode on-off so we can look at the wall itself and go back to framing display all but the framing. Another request that we've had is the designation of load-bearing versus non-load-bearing walls. So that when you're putting an opening into a wall, for your non-load-bearing walls, you might want just a simple 2x6 on the flat. But for your load-bearing walls, you're going to want 2x10s and your engineered joists and everything in there as well. So how do you designate a wall as being load-bearing versus non-load-bearing? Well, in the past, you had to go through and select different infills for them in multiple select walls. Now, if I double-click on a wall, we've added a property into the wall itself. You can see here, frame as load-bearing. There's 3 different settings for that now. We have auto, no, and yes. Auto means that if the wall is an exterior wall, it will automatically be designated as a load-bearing wall. If the wall is an interior wall, then it will automatically be seen as a non-load-bearing wall. So you can use that for your general situations. And then in the catalog itself, have a wall designated, an interior wall, as yes, so it can automatically, upon insertion, know that it is a load-bearing interior wall, and it will get the header sizes automatically correct for you when it's going to frame the wall. That is a huge improvement for version 10, the ability to automatically recognize load-bearing versus non-load-bearing for all of the header sizes that you're going to be putting into the software. So when it's framing it very accurately for you. Now, when we're talking about openings, we just talked how we can automatically now get the right header size for you. I'm just going to move around in my model here. Just going to zoom around, and I'm going to look at a window. Now, when we're looking at this window at the side of the house here, when I'm looking at this design, I'm thinking that window looks fairly weak on that wall. On this particular wall that I'm looking at right now, I would want to put in a bigger window to emphasize this great height that I have on this wall, and perhaps even a little bit wider. So in the past, you've been able to select the wall, replace it, or keep inserting different sizes. So now if you're in a design mode and you want to really see what would it look like with slightly larger, slightly taller, now when you select on a window, you'll notice that we have these grips on the side. If I put my cursor on top of one of those grips, I can stretch it. And as I'm stretching that wall, that window, it's actually growing on my screen for me. And I can stretch it up taller as well. So you've got the opportunity to make it bigger. If I double click on that window, one of our program settings is that it will automatically rename it for you. So you can have it automatically rename it to the sizes that you're stretching it out to, or you can uncheck that program setting to say, don't rename the window, just let me stretch it out and change the size, but don't let it affect the window name. So it'll automatically rename the window if you wish, according to the new size that you've chosen. Now, I'm going to stretch this a little smaller here, so it's not as tall, but it's nice and wide. So now I've got a short window, but I want it to sit up higher. You also have the ability now in version 10 to move that window. See, I can move it very easily up and down the wall or side to side if I wanted to move it to one side or the other. So you can change the position of the window while in 3D as well. So while you're in that design mode and you're thinking about the overall plan that you're creating, this is a great way, even in front of a client, to visualize what the overall design is going to look like. Make changes like that on the fly, stretch them out. I also see this as a huge improvement for those of you that are using the software strictly for estimating purposes. You might be able to plop in one window size and then just stretch it all over the entire plan to get that increased header size that you really want to calculate. If you're not calculating the window size itself, you're really just using these openings to be able to estimate a header size. This will allow you to stretch them out and quickly get that new header size that you need as well. I'm going to put this down into 2D now, my plan, and I'm going to zoom in on that section. You'll notice with our windows and our doors and openings if I want them to as well, they'll automatically now have window and door and opening marks illustrated right on your plan for you. That was another big request of our end users around the world. So I'm happy to say that version 10 now implements that new feature for you. You do have unique settings for how those are displayed. So I'm going to go up right now to Settings and Program Settings to display those for you. Under Program Settings, the very last option on the bottom right now is now called Element Mark Settings. So you can designate exactly how you want those window and door marks to appear. So with doors, you can have it width times height, or just the width, whatever you'd like there. You'll notice with one of the doors here, I've got off to the side here, that I just called it a 2868. If the door or the window or the opening has a mark set to it, that's where you can use the mark instead. So if it has a mark, it'll automatically use that mark. So for these doors, I gave them a mark under their properties, which I'll show you in just a minute, that says 2868. So that's how it's going to call itself out. Or I can use the general format here in the element mark settings to be width times height, or height times width. You can also show the units, feet and inches, and the precision. So if you have some really odd sizes, maybe they're to the ½ inch or they're to the 1/8 of an inch, but you really just want the precision on the floor plan to be to the full foot and inch, then you can designate that, or you can go right down to the 64th of an inch if you'd like to do that. When it's marking them on the floor plan, where do you want to see that door and window marks? To the inside of the opening, to the outside of the opening, or right in the midpoint, in the center, you can do that as well. Choose the layer you want to place it on, so when it goes to your working drawing sheet, it's on the layer that you want it to be on, and choose the text size. All of this can be customized, so it's marking the floor plan exactly as you want it to for your window and your door marks. Huge improvement for version 10, and I really hope that you enjoy that new feature. It should save you a lot of time in marking the floor plan with your door and window marks. Another option that we did set, and I'm going to go back to program settings, when you're creating the window and door marks, the windows and specifically the doors, the swing direction. Depending on where you are in the world, what we found is people designate right and left-hand doors differently. So we wanted to give you the opportunity so that you could select how you designate a right or a left-hand door. So you can see we've got the little visual here. How do you designate your right-hand door or left-hand door? And you can choose the different options. And then it'll automatically swing the doors to the left and the right according to the designation that you gave them. Underneath that option, you can see here where we're stretching the openings, and that's where it's going to have the auto name. So that is a feature that you're going to have to enable. So when you first get version 10, if you go out to your 3D and try to stretch a window and say, hey, it's not stretching, that's because it's an option here that you can turn that on or off. Some people are not going to want to stretch their openings. They want to put in true window sizes only and are not going to want to stretch them. If you do, come in here to your program settings under building aids, make sure it's marked enabled, and that you auto rename the openings if you want the name to change with the new size designation that you do give it. I'm going to get out of here, and I do want to look at this door, double-clicking on it, and where does it get the mark? Where did it get that 2686? Here you can see under the quantity tab. Quantity tab looks a little different. It's a little preview before I get into the quantities, where you can put that mark. So any custom mark that you want to type in there, you can have it automatically go through there. You can have that set to off. So if you don't want a particular door to have a mark on it, set it to off. So this will allow you, if you have removed a mark from a door, if it's set to off, then it won't reappear. So for those of you that are remodelers in the crowd, and I recognize a lot of the names in our attendee list here today, and I know some of you are remodelers. So if you don't want to mark the existing doors, make sure they're set to off. They won't mark. Otherwise, they can automatically mark to whatever your settings and the program settings are, or you can do a custom one like I did here with 2868. So again, lots of flexibility there on how you're going to insert those door and window marks. Next, I want to show you working with members. We had a lot of requests for being able to insert members and do it with different options. So I'm going to pick up here where we find our members tool. You'll recognize member by picking points, an existing tool in the software that you already have. And underneath that, you'll see a new tool, member insertion options. This is one of my very favorite tools of version 10, and I hope you like it as well. The member insertion options dialog box gives you the opportunity to make a lot of different choices before you insert a member. So as an example, I can put a slope in. So if I want to put a member in, maybe matching a roof plane, I can put in that slope of the roof. If I want to match the plane exactly, I can select that plane. So in version 9, you're able to select a plane and insert a member to it. Now we can put in the degrees, the percent, the slope in 12, and here's the biggie, the offset. What you might have found before, if you inserted a member to a plane, the top of that member was at the top of that plane. So now we're giving you the ability to offset a known distance. So if I wanted to put it in to match the plane of the roof and then bring it down so it's sitting 6 inches lower, I can do that all at the same time instead of having to elevate the member later. Now I'm putting it in at the exact position that I want it to go. Here's the biggest feature that excites me here, number of members that I can insert at one time. So instead of putting in one 2x10, when you know you want a 3 2x10 beam in, now I can say that I want 3 2x10s put in at the exact same time. So you don't have to copy it anymore and move it along. Now I'm putting in 3 2x10s all at the same time. When I'm putting them in, the reference point is going to be the top, and it's going to be the center of that member, or you can say that you want it to the left or the right. So if you know that when you're putting in this member, you want it to be to the one side or to the other side or the center, now you've got that flexibility to choose exactly how you're inserting it. Do you want it rotated? Do you want to shift it one way or the other when you go to insert it? Again, all of these finite little details. So when you go to insert that member, it's going to be exactly what you want in the exact position that you want it as well. And again, speaking to those that are using our software for quantity purposes, now when I insert this member, right away upon insertion, I can say what is the phase and what is the usage. So it's not just a member going in. I can say that it is a beam and it is in the phase of my floor framing if I wanted to make that designation at that time. So again, this member insertion dialog box allows you to pick any kind of slope, so even if it was just flat, whatever offset that you want to make. So if you want to raise it up 8 feet from the floor, if it was a 3 2x10 beam, top center is part of my wall framing and it's a framing member. And now when I go to insert it, and I'll just pick a point here, just a random point, left click, and left click, you can see that I have 3 2x10s. I'm just going to zoom in on the end here, all put in at the same time. Fantastic new tool. Another request that we had about members is the ability for them to show solid filled. So they wanted to show on the floor plan a solid fill connection there. So I'm going to come up here to settings, and I'm going to go to program settings. And under my building aids, I'm going to turn on solid fill and hit OK here. So the walls, as always, can still have their solid fill. But now I'm going to select one of these members, right click, and say select all similar, select all my 2x10s, and let's look at their properties. Under their properties, under the appearance tab, I'm going to give them a solid fill black. And when I click OK, you can see that they're black. Another request that we've had, some people want to show them as a solid filled item in their floor plans so they get that great color print. Another request was, well, I don't want to see all of the lines that are made up of my member. Can we flatten that down just to a line? We can do that now too in version 10. If I look at the properties of the member again and go to this details tab, you'll see this option down here, render in 2D as just a single line. So for those of you that want it to be just that single line, and perhaps under the appearance tab in that 2D footprint, you want to give it a dashed dot look, now you have that opportunity to do that. So when I click OK, now you can see I have just 3 separate lines to that. So that's a great new tool about the members themselves. I'm going to pop us back out into a 3D view to show you something else we've done with members. I'm going to take us back looking at the screen from the very front. And you can see that I did some work beforehand. I've got this member coming in, and then I've got this one shorter. So we're pretending that we didn't know what we wanted. Do we want a nice long raster tail there at the bottom, or do we want to just cut it off at the point where this roof surface ends? So we've decided that we want to extend this member along the plane, matching that plane of the roof. So I'm going to select the member, right-click, and you'll see that we have the option to extend to plane. So by extending the plane, I picked the plane of the roof. Looking down in the lower left-hand corner of my screen, that's our prompt line. Always look there when you're trying out a brand new tool. It's going to prompt you what to do. So right now it's prompting me to pick the plane to match. So I'm picking the plane of the roof, and then it says, well, pick the end of the member that you want to match to it. And I pick that member and extends it along that plane for me, creating that extra long rafter tail. Great new feature that allows you to be able to manipulate the members very quickly. And you can see along the edge of the member itself, under its properties, you have the opportunity in the details to square and plumb or automatically allow it to make those end conditions for you. And also with a right click, I've shown you extend the plane, and we also have adjust to the plane as well. So if I wanted to adjust the pitch or match a different plane for this member now that I've got it in, I can, right now it's on a 14 and 12 slope. I could change that to an 8/12, give it a different offset, and adjust it through these values here. So once it's in, you have great opportunity to change and update the member that you've inserted. Putting this back down into 2D, and I want to talk a little bit about solid fill again. We've added solid fill capabilities to members, as I had suggested. We've also given them to columns. We've also given them to paths and pads and fills. So now if you want to create a nice colorful floor plan, putting in a fill to your floors, to your members, to your fills, paths and pads, you can have a nice colorful floor plan. So again, members, floors, you can also apply it to columns, fills, and paths and pads. You can all have a designation under their appearance to have a solid fill. Any color that you want, just tell it what solid fill you want, and all of those can create a nice colorful floor plan for you, so you have that. And that's, again, just so you can show the software, show the design in a way that someone's going to understand it and give that nice presentation quality to your working drawings if you're doing a presentation set of drawings. And speaking along the lines of drafting, as I had mentioned, coming in the fall, we're going to be implementing with our 64-bit release at that time, some new drafting tools. But we do have some for our initial release as well. So if you go up to Tools and Layout, you'll now see that we have an ellipse command. This is a big request from some of our users wanting to use an ellipse to show different things in the working drawings and here in model space as well. So we've given you two different options for inserting the ellipse under an axis or the center point. And we can also create it into an elliptical arc as well with the axis and the center point as well. So you're just picking on the screen, and it's just saying that I'm turning those things on again, and I'm creating that ellipse. So a feature that many people had asked for. Another one that they had asked for was, and I'm just going to turn that off again so we've got some clarity on our screen, is the ability to do a dimension in the working sheets for angled dimensions. Previously, that was only available in worksheet mode, but now you can add an angular dimension while you're in working drawings as well. And that will help out. So if you're coming up with a design concept and you want to, hey, what is the angle on that? Maybe you're inserting a PDF and want to take a measurement, you can do that from there. Or you can also show the dimensions here in model space for those to continue on to your working drawing sheets as well. We've also given the ability, if I hit Zoom to Fit down here, if I had any drafting elements out to the side, Zoom to Fit will now recognize those elements. And when you zoom to fit, it will zoom to fit your CAD elements as well. We had a request from some of our end users. I'm going to go back up to program settings here, just generally about autosave. When autosave kicks in version 9 right now, and you have a time increment every 30 minutes or whatever time increment you've set up, if you do a manual save, autosave is on its own little timer. So it would still go every 30 minutes, even if you just did a save, 2 minutes later, if it was on that 30-minute time increment, it would do another save. Now auto-save is also in line with any general save that you do. So if you do a save, 30 minutes later, it will do an auto-save. And it will keep doing those 30-minute auto-saves for you. So a general save and an auto-save are now in line. So if you do a save, the 30-minute increment will come up with that as well. We've already talked about cycle selection, so putting our cursor on one and being able to select all different types of objects. I think that's a great one for you as well. And we also have improved snapping capabilities for you. And this, I think, will have a great benefit for those that are importing a PDF to trace. In previous versions of Envisioneer, it would snap track and object snapped would be the predominant selection. So if I was inserting just as an example, just a line, so I'm just going to choose the line tool. If I was to snap here on this wall, and then I was going to left click and drag this down, it's always going to keep ortho now as the predominant selection. So it's not going to want to stray off of that straight line that you're trying to create and snap to other objects that it might see along that pathway and take your line or your wall off on a slight angle. So for those of you that were bringing in PDFs before and tracing over top of them to create your wall layout, just like I had this PDF in here, what you'll find is that now you'll have a greater access to that. It'll be much easier to do that because ortho is predominant in that. We also have given you the ability now, if I come into strip footings, with strip footings, we can now bring in a custom profile. So if you're having a custom footing set up, now you can use any kind of profile on that footing that you want to have, so it can match any kind of construction detail you need for that footing. Before you were limited to having filleted, tapered, or rectangular solid. Now any custom profile can be attached to that footing, and you can match any construction details that you want to. So another request that we had from an end user needing some really custom looking footings, so we give you the ability to bring in any profile of a footing that you want to use it for the drawings themselves. Again, another feature request. And again, I'm just going to turn that off so we've got some clarity on our plan. I'm going to put this back out into a 3D view. When we attach a material, so if I use my material paintbrush, and right now I'm using one style of shingle. If you wanted to change shingles in the past, you'd have to, and have that quantify, you'd have to replace the roof with a different quantity so that it would have that new selection of shingle on it. So now I'm just going to take an eyedropper of this roof shingle, and I'm going to choose a different roof shingle, and I'm going to select it. Right-click and tell it I'm finished. Double-clicking on that object now, I go to the Appearance page, and I can see this dark brown shingle. If I select that dark brown shingle back in the Materials catalog, what you'll notice now is under the Material selection, we've given the ability to attach an assembly to the actual object. So I'm just going to build an assembly to show you how to do that. So I can click here that I want to select an assembly and for the material, and I'm going to add in a new group here saying roofing materials and an assembly underneath that's saying new shingle. Now what you do is I can attach any price. So if this new shingle was a shingle that had a higher price, then I can get that general measurement here. So I'm going to go to the roof surface area, click here, and break it down by the squares of this particular shingle. I see this as a great tool for if you want to show someone what the house would look like with shingles, where I'm going to get the roof surface area, maybe some felt underneath it. But then if they wanted to see it if they were using steel roofing, well then you need battens and you need the steel material. Those can have different assemblies attached to them so that you can quantify instantly the different materials just by using Material Paintbrush to paint on that new material. So just by painting on a new material, that material itself holds quantity information that will allow me to do that. So it's a great feature of using that and having that new material quantify for you. Another thing that we've done is giving you the ability to have multiple assemblies. So I'm going to look at one of the walls here and look at their properties. And again, I'm going to return us to that quantity page. I kind of gave you a sneak preview of it before, when we were looking at that door and the way that it marked. Here now in the quantity page, you can see the assemblies to the right. One, this is a nice improvement. Before, the assemblies were located at the bottom of the dialog box. You had to scroll through it. It was kind of tiny, hard to see what was all included as quantity information. Now it's off to one side, and I can clearly see that this wall, when I use it as a takeoff, will give me house wrap, stucco, OSB, sheetrock, paint, and then some just general wall surface length, interior wall surface length, and bulk dry wall screws quantities. I can also add another assembly. So if I just wanted to have my OSB and my sheetrock, and that's the basic part of the wall, and then have another assembly that brings on paint, if maybe sometimes I want to apply paint, sometimes I don't, it could be another added assembly that I could add in. So if I just look at my components here and just say drywall only, I could add that in as a separate assembly. So your one shopping cart, your one assembly does not have to include all of the different products that you are going to want to take off. They can be in separate little components. So my drywall can be one separate assembly so I can attach it to some models and not to others. It doesn't have to be an entire new assembly that I have to build for a different wall. I just add on the different assembly components that I want to include for a particular wall. So that's a great way of reorganizing your quantity information, multiple assemblies, having your materials also have assemblies attached to them. So if we're looking again at the wall material, the stucco could have one price to it, but if I put that to brick, the brick could have a different price, or the siding, different siding materials could have a different price attached to that material. And then here in my multiple assemblies, I could have the sheathing and the sheetrock, but the drywall maybe, or the sheetrock could be separate, and the paint could be separate, and the drywall screws could be separate. Maybe you want to separate some of those out. So it gives you the opportunity to separate things out so you can have really organized quantities and really kind of customize your catalog to reduce all the duplicates that you might have had before that maybe just had one different assembly item in it. Now it can just be a separate assembly putting in there. I'm going to then select this roof to show you another new feature of version 10. Lots of new features. We've had almost 45 minutes of brand new features in the software, and I've still got lots more to present to you as well. I'm going to select the roof, and then I'm going to convert this roof to surfaces. And I'm going to tell it that I want to make this an asphalt shingle roof surface. Click OK. You can see again the material updates because that particular roof surface had a different product associated to it. Putting this back into 2D, I can look at the surfaces themselves and use this new roof edge type editor. Previously, when you converted a roof to surfaces, it put double edges along. So every edge it saw as maybe two hip lines, two fascia lines, two ridge lines. But now you can see that it's all color coordinated. So that these blue little triangles that I have reveal my fascia ends. The red triangles are my gable ends. The yellow ones that you see are my hip edges. The purple designations are my ridges. And the ones that are gray mean there's nothing designated to that. And that's what you'll see on the opposite side of every selection. So here I have a ridge, and on the other side there's nothing. But you could change that gray one, if you wanted to, into a double ridge. So if you want to have double material at that ridge, then you could make both of them a ridge line. So before, previously, where people had said, you know, I'm getting double quantities on my ridges because every time it's separated into separate surfaces, each edge remembered what it was, but when they came up together, it would give you the double. Now you can see a clear plan of how these designations are going together, and you can change them very quickly. That's a great enhancement of version 10. So it allows you to make the modifications you need to in a very visual setting, so you can see everything very cleanly. I'm going to now take us for a walkthrough into our model. So I'm going to walk right through, right by our front door. As I'm walking through, there's a couple things that you'll note. One, I haven't inserted any lighting into my plan. But you can see that this headlight that I've got in front of my camera is lighting up the view for me. So now attached to your camera is a headlight. So as you walk through, it's going to brighten up the space for you. Also, what we've done to improve your 3D views is while you're in a real-time walkthrough, it's going to appear crisper because the view is now automatically anti-aliased. So you don't see a lot of distortion, and it's a higher resolution. So if I just look down at the floor, you can see how much better that floor appears and all the imagery in the rooms because it's already going through and giving that anti-alias type of view. So as you walk through the different rooms now, it'll automatically put that headlight in. So the room is going to light up nicely for you, and everything's going to look crisper for you. So that's some new presentation style as you're walking through and visualizing with a client. Now it'll appear nicer as you walk through in 3D for you. So we've made the automatic headlight. So you've got that nice light going through if you haven't already created lights in the space. And we've anti-aliased the view as well. So it's going to look crisper and more realistic on the screen as you do those walkthroughs and you walk through the space. Okay, so you can see that as I'm making that quick little walkthrough. Depending on your internet connection, that might be a slow little movement for you. But again, once you get it on your own system, you can see how quickly the walkthroughs are. If you are experiencing a little screen delay or that's looking like a choppy movement, once you have it on your system and we're not going through the internet, it will be much quicker. We've also did some enhancements to our export capabilities in the software. We recognize that many of you wanted to export your work to wall panel diagrams to a CNC machine. So now if I look at my wall panel diagrams in my model, I also have the option to create a bill of materials from the selected panel, and that will create a CSV file that I can send right out to my CNC machine. So for those of you that are using the software in conjunction for building panels, that's a great new feature for you. We've also enhanced our Warehouser export. So if you're using eye-level Javelin or Warehouser product in conjunction with your Envisioneer software, when you export out to Warehouser, the usage and the material information is now going to be included in that link. So for those of you that were using eye-level, formerly known as, or now known as Warehouser software for your floor joist creation, it will now recognize the material information and the usage in that link that we send out. If you export the software out into as a 3D model to SketchUp, we've also did some enhancements there as well. We've consolidated the surfaces, so during the export process, similar surfaces are going to be consolidated, and that's going to give you a simpler and cleaner look when you go into SketchUp. We also will recognize the units. So when we export out into SketchUp format, they'll be scaled down into real-world units, so it'll be easier to use that conversion between the two products. And we've also, when we export, we'll export it out onto layers. So when it goes out into SketchUp, there'll be individual layers that you can manipulate the product. So those of you that are using it for exporting purposes, you'll find that great new enhancement as well. Another feature for those of you that are in larger offices, or perhaps you're a school using the software, the construction suite version of Envisioneer will now also have server licensing. So if you have multiple seats of the software, you can now put the licensing up on your server. So as people start up their Envisioneer, it'll look to the server, see that the license is there, and start up their software. So you don't have to have individual codes for every machine in the office. It will recognize the server, and they'll all just get that unique code. That will help those of you that have large organizations. We have companies that have in excess of 100 seats at their office. So to put individual codes in was time-consuming. So for those of you on Construction Suite, that will now be a simplified version of putting in one server license, and it will recognize everyone on that server, and it will automatically put through their license to that particular install. What I'd like to do now is answer any questions that you might have about version 10 and the features that might be coming into the fall. I'll be, again, doing a different webinar in the fall again when we release the second release. I want to take you up to our website right now before I go to the questions. When we release the software in July, For those of you that have already purchased the version 10 upgrade, and for those of you that are going to be purchasing the upgrade, you will automatically receive the framing structure class, the material takeoff class, and in the fall, when the drafting and the 64-bit version of 10 is released, you'll get the drafting and working drawing online courses. That's 6 hours of courses, online courses that we're going to give to you for purchasing version 10 as a pre-release. So our pre-release special is going to include for you these 3 webinars complimentary. You won't have to pay the $125 price per class. These are 3 2-hour classes that we're going to include for you. The price for the upgrade, our sales staff is going to be sending you, by the end of this webinar, each one of you that are attending this webinar will receive an email with your price in it. If you don't automatically receive that email, that means that we don't have your current information. So I recommend that you call into our sales center and they will forward that email to you. For those of you in different countries, that email will be sent directly from your distributor. So contact your local distributor if you are outside of North America, and they will forward pricing on to you. But for those of you that are in North America, you will get one automatically sent after this webinar. Give them a couple hours. It will take them that long to get all of those emails out, and it will include your upgrade offer. And those will include these 3 courses for you. There will be a page that will be available following the webinar. So if you wanted to look at any of those features again that we will be offering, we will have a link, the link that you clicked on today to get you to register for this class. For this webinar will now be updated with all of the various features that I just pointed out to you. So there is a scrolling page here. If you were to print it out, it would be 7 pages of new features that are going into version 10. There's a lot of new updating and programming that went into it, and you can read about those on our website. That will automatically start to fire up once this webinar is completed. They've just held that page back. You can see I've got it on a temporary page here. But once this broadcast is over, that will be part of our website, and you'll be able to read about all of those features. And I have created little videos for many of the different features as well, so you can watch the video if you wanted to see one of those highlighted again. I am taping today's class, so if you did want to see it again, we'll be able to send you a link of today's class so that you can see all the features again that I presented to you in this webinar. So without further ado, I want to spend some time. We do have just a short amount of time left over, and we had so many features to show you, but I do want to be able to answer some of your questions for you. Someone had some hearing problems. In changing a window size in design mode, how can you show the 6/8 header height for the window? So if I'm looking at a window, so let me go back out into my 3D perspective view on the outside of the house, and I'll just flip us very quickly by moving my camera over to that same window. If I wanted to keep this at a 6/8 head height, I wouldn't move it. As I'm stretching that, I could move that later if I did stretch it up and make it a taller window. I could then right-click. You still have that elevate option. That elevate option will allow you to bring it down to whatever head height you wanted it to. So if I apply that, that'll bring it back down to 6/8. So you still have those same tools and functionality that you had before. So you can bring that back down to 6/8, or you can stretch that up and put it at any height that you want to as well. In marking the windows in element mark settings, can this sizing be rough opening? You can put that to whatever sizing you want. Again, you can do width and height, or, as I said, looking at the properties of the window. If you would prefer it to call out a different size from that, go to your quantity page, make sure that your mark, instead of being set to auto, is set to custom, and you type in any custom text that you want to see there. So you've got flexibility of putting in any kind of text that you want there. I would assume that our existing catalogs will work as is. But if we want to take advantage of the new functions or some of the catalog features, will we need to rebuild the catalog? Is that correct? You can. Your catalogs that you've created and that you worked in forever with Envisioneer will still function the same. But if you want to take advantage of the materials being able to quantify, you can pull those out of your existing assemblies and attach them to the materials instead if you wanted to look at restructuring your catalog to be able to take advantage of that feature. Yes, that would be something you'd have to go in and change so that it would take advantage of that feature. We're not going to automatically overwrite to your new catalogs. They will still function as is. They're great to go. But if you do want to take advantage of materials being able to quantify, you might want to restructure that part of your catalog. Are the floor joists set below the subfloor in the section? No, they're not. By using that new structural floor tool, now when I create the section of that floor, so if I went in and looked at, just going to turn off the visibility of display nothing, but our floor and our floor framing, structural floor framing and our structural floor, you can see that they're going on top of each other. And if I looked at this designation of that one joist or the band joist, I can put as part of my structural floor. So I'm just going to go back up to that tool here. Because we're designating them all at the same time, it'll automatically put them all in the right layering. So the subfloor, then the joist, in version 9 and previous, it saw them all at the same starting point, right at the top of the surface, the joist and the subfloor. So now, because of this new structural floor tool, it's going to stack them perfectly for you. I noticed that the French doors on your plan were not marked. Can bi-hinge doors be marked automatically? Yes, they can. I'm just going to go back here to framing, display all but the framing. Some of the doors and windows I had marked as don't mark. So if I look at a door, if it's not marked, that's because the mark originally was set to off. So I wanted to show you that you can mark some doors with some custom marks. You can follow the automatic program settings, and you can also turn that to off as well. So yes, doors, by hinge, everything can be automatically labeled for you, and you can just designate if you want a door not to mark. Okay, and someone's asked, what is going to be the new drafting and 2D tools? Again, we're going to reveal those in our fall release when we do the 64-bit. So if you tuned in a little late to our webinar, at the very beginning, I noted that for version 10, what we want to do is do a multi-release for just this one version of version 10. So now in our July release, you're getting all the functionality that I showed you. Everything that you saw, that 7 pages of printed out features, will be released in July. We're mid-July to late July is when we're going to be releasing the product. And then because we wanted to do a 64-bit application as well, we're going to take the extra time to do that perfectly, and we want to release that in the fall. So at that same time, when we get the 64-bit release, we're going to be also putting in our drafting enhancements as well. So just like we did today's webinar, I'll be doing one in the future as well, so I can profile those great tools. I want to be able to show them to you instead of just talking about them with you today. Can I select structurally insulated panels as part of this program? When you're doing the walls and you're creating the designation of the wall itself, you could set it up, and the default catalog, you'll notice, has ICF panels in there. It's how you designate the wall and set that up. So if you wanted it to be set up as a panel, you can. And one of the features of our walls is you can have it automatically break. So if you have your panels at a set size, that can automatically break to those panels. Or you can break it at any point that you want to as well. So if you wanted to auto break every 5 feet, you can designate that, or just break it at certain spots. So yes, you can handle that. I may need a 612, a 1012, and a 1212 gable roof pitch for my project. Would I have to change the default HIP program for all 3 gable pitches? No, you can just insert it. You can notice here on the sample model that I'm using today, it has a double slope. So I have, I believe that's an 812 going to a 1412. I just put it in all as an 812 and then just did on the one side here. And this is something that you can do in your current version. This isn't something that's new with version 10. I just took the properties of it and made it in a double slope. So you'll see that as part of your roof properties. You can have double slope, so I just did that. But you don't have to have those as all different roof selections in your catalog. You can insert it as a 612, and then every side can be selected and altered differently. Don't feel like you have to have all of those products in your catalog. You could even just have one inserted and then manipulate each side as you need to. I noticed multiple assemblies in the wall type. How do you choose which assembly it will use? Well, if you have a multiple assembly on this wall, it will use both. So both of these, if I added another assembly in here and just went to a simple, we'll do that drywall on this one, it will look at every assembly that's attached here. So every assembly that you have attached, it will. If you don't want it to use a certain assembly, I could pick this drywall one, and then you'll notice up at the top here, I have the ability to remove it. I don't want to quantify it for this particular wall, or I can edit it to change that assembly. Or I can click on the stucco one, and now I'm editing it, or I'm removing it. So you select the one that you want to change, and then I hit remove, and you can see it's gone. So if it's in this list, and it's multiple assemblies along, everything that's on this page is going to quantify. It just gives you the ability to take certain things and put them into only certain assemblies so that they can be better structured in your catalog. Also, will the valley and rafter framing be accurate? When it's doing the rafter framing now, it's going to go through now with the assemblies with converting this into surfaces. Yes, because now you're only going to get that one member that's there. So you're not going to get that double member at all the edges. So yes, that will make it, you're right, much more accurate. Someone asked about improvements in the rendering. We put a big focus on rendering in version 9 so you can get the higher quality. So we didn't emphasize rendering in this other than the automatic headlight and when you're walking through it's going to look more photorealistic. But as far as the rendering is concerned, we didn't make any changes. But what I'd like to do is take you up to our website where you can look at all of our videos that are there. So for those of you that weren't aware of this page, if you go to www.cadsoft.com and then click on support, you'll see this option for videos and tutorials. In the videos and tutorials, you will have this full page of different videos that you can watch. And up there, we've got some really good ones on rendering. So I would suggest you come here and watch the different videos on rendering if you're not getting the results you see, because version 9 should be able to create some really high-end renderings for you. So maybe it's just some settings that need to be adjusted. Okay, I've got time to take just a couple more questions. I apologize if I don't get to your questions. We'll make sure that if your question did go unanswered, that it will be answered in a follow-up email. And roof edit mode. Is this like roof surface settings? Yeah, so if I come in here, that's exactly if I go to this editor, that allows me to go to each of these sides and change it to a different setting. So if I click on that I want to make this into a ridge line, I can come over here and say that that's a ridge line. Or put it as a fascia and click on the arrows that I want to change to a fascia. So yeah, that's like changing and editing the roof surfaces mode. You're exactly correct. All right, the valley framing, that's correct. And I got some plotting questions. Let me try to read that one again. Do we have the ability to save plot settings for different line weights? With line weights, those can be set up to your layers. So send me an email for the person that did post that up to see what you want different from that, because every line has the ability if I look at the properties of one of these as an example, I'm going to click on this wall, look at its properties. Under the Appearance tab, to be all set to a different layer and a different line type. So let me know what you want different from these line types that you see here, and I can answer that for you. But I really want to thank everyone for joining us for the launch of version 10. It's an exciting new release, and again, for those of you that are going to or have already purchased, we have many of you that are already in line to get version 10. Again, you will have the all of the webinars that I showed you, so you'll be in the class for the framing structure class, the material takeoff class, and in the fall when we run the drafting and working drawings class. Those are going to be giving you those videos. It'll be actually a webinar just like today. We will tape them for if you can't attend it live, you'll be able to watch the taping afterwards. So those are the feature bonuses of ordering version 10 in our pre-release launch right now. And again, pricing will be sent to you automatically from our head office for those of you that are in North America. And for those of you joining us all over the world, I noticed some Australian and some UK customers and South African customers in our webinar today. You'll be getting your prices from your local distributor. So again, thank you for joining me today for the version 10 launch. Exciting new release. I hope you're as excited as I am about it. Watch your email for details coming. They should be following in the next few hours for you. If you do not receive that email, that's because we don't have probably your proper email address. So please make sure that you do call our sales office and they'll be able to get that information out for you. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.